All right, welcome to Beyond the Mat for a little bit of extra here on a Saturday night. I got Kyle with me. How you doing, Kyle?
Great. How's it going, Matt?
Pretty good, man. We're going to talk some WWE, everything that happened this week, especially what happened on SmackDown last night. A couple of different things that were piquing my interest, especially overnight, particularly Charlotte Flair and her segment with Drew Gulak. Found out that Drew Gulak had got a new role as an interviewer, and Charlotte Flair ended up asking for an interview with him, got him in the middle of the ring, and he did a good job of antagonizing her, reminding her that she tapped out at WrestleMania. And she did a pretty good job actually with her crowd interaction, referring to that as her checking her bra or fixing her bra or whatever. And if you remember during that match, she had a little nip slip. So it was funny that she was calling back to that. And even her interaction with the crowd, with the wedding and stuff like that, I thought was better from Charlotte than I've seen recently. And then the stuff with Gulak, I thought was cringeworthy at first, just thinking about it. But if he is going to be this kind of interviewer that bothers the heels like this and creates this kind of heat, what do you feel about Gulak in that role, and how do you feel they executed this segment?
I feel like to the untrained eye or to the person that doesn't know Drew Gulak or his experiences or his training or his abilities or anything, I feel like this is a great segment. I feel like he did an awesome job with antagonizing her, like you said. He was picking at her in just the right ways. And he obviously was trying to play the sheep as well, trying to be very shy and making sure that, he didn't step on any toes, but his words definitely pissed Charlotte off, and it was hilarious to see her respond. So I thought segment wise, he did great. Now, to me, who I know exactly how much experience he has and training he has, and his abilities in the ring, and his abilities to be an actual sports entertainer, not just an interviewer, I thought it was kind of crap. I was like surprised to see this guy that could out wrestle a lot of people is in there just interviewing people. I'm like, why is he just interviewing people? Does anybody even know that he could wrestle pretty much anybody in the mid card at least and have a great match? So I was just surprised by that, really. But I'll say this, if they can continue forward with this storyline of him being an interviewer and get him more on TV and people get more comfortable with him, then it would be actually be pretty fun to see him get into the ring after that as an interviewer first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that him being a skilled wrestler and being somebody who's basically taken every role that they've given him and played it well, he could definitely play this role well and really be kind of a thorn in the side of people like Flair and, other heels on the roster who think their shit doesn't stink. And when he calls them out on their stuff and gets a little antagonistic and gets them a little bit hot about it, that dynamic is actually pretty cool. I just hope that this wasn't a one off thing to get Charlotte Flair some heat because it was just totally, as you said, demeaning to Drew Gulak as far as his abilities are. We all know he's better than this. But he hasn't, for whatever reason, been in any kind of program in almost 2 years. So on one hand, it's like, how do they present this guy? Because he hasn't been in a program for 2 years, and that's on them for doing that. And so now they have him in this role now, whether it's long term or just a one off thing. And I'm happy for him to have a role at all, I guess, at this point, if it's a long-term thing. If it's a thing where they just did it for one night to have Charlotte attack him because her promos with Ronda Rousey have been boring beyond boring, then I can see that too. But I don't think that the Flair and Rousey feud needs heat at the expense of Drew Gulak.
Nothing hurts more than seeing people that could do much more than what WWE is allowing them to do. I mean, heck, where's Aaliyah? Where'd she go? I mean, obviously there's reasons why she's not around, but like, it's just an example of somebody you see for a second and then they disappear, or maybe you don't even get a chance to see them for a second and they never show up at all. And WWE has a strange way of using their superstars. Like you said, though, I just hope to see it continue. If they don't continue with him being an interviewer and continuing feuding with other wrestlers, then why did they even do it in the first place?
I think that this week it was nice to not have Rousey on TV. I think Flair carried it well on her own. Like I said, at first it was a little cringeworthy to see her put Gulak in the figure eight, but that's him acting. It's hard for us to say whether it's a terrible spot for him to be in because he's surely well paid and he might like what he's doing. So, whatever it is, that's fine. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'd rather see him get into the ring and then figure something out for him in there, but that may never happen. And the thing is, I don't understand why they don't use him in the ring. He's 6 foot tall. It's not like he's 5'4". He's got okay size. He's not a giant, but he can fit in the mid card. So I don't know what's happened to him.
He just doesn't fit the image that WWE apparently really wants for their male superstars. They want their male superstars to be, probably over 6'3" or over 6'4" and over a certain amount of weight and have very built muscles. Like, I think The Miz is pushing it for them. Honestly, I feel like they let The Miz get away with it because he's in really good shape. But even The Miz, I feel like could be a little bit bigger for them in their eyes or in their ideal image. But hey, look, back in the day, everybody used to look like Ken Shamrock, right? Like, if you weren't
Right.
Mankind, you looked like Ken Shamrock. Like, you were just a ball of muscle. You're not allowing the true talent of some people to come out just simply on their physical attributes. And Drew Gulak has a lot of talent that is not being utilized right now. And I think it's because of his visual appearance. I'll be honest. I think it's just because he doesn't have a visual if factor. He's not necessarily imposing or doesn't stand out in any way. He's not big. He's not super muscular. So I think that is what's hindering him in WWE's eyes.
I couldn't have said it better, my friend. So let's move on to Belair and Sonya Deville here. Now, obviously, this is going to result in Belair going over here. This is a backlash match. I could see it coming from a mile away that Sonya Deville was going to assign herself as the opponent. My issue with the whole thing is that if Sonya Deville is going to continue to do shit like this, where she books herself in championship matches and harasses Naomi and this, that, and the third. Is this now the time where Sonya Deville permanently returns to the ring? Do they play that as an angle where Adam Pearce says, no, upper management says you can't do both? And if so, I think that's great for Sonya Deville to finally be back in the ring. I'm glad she's comfortable with it. I think she's a great competitor. But at this point, there's so many other superstars that are heels that Bianca Belair can start off with. But at the end of the day, decent starter feud for Belair and decent starter feud for Deville to get her feet back in the water. Belair's going to take care of her in the ring, going to make her look good. Deville's got good skills, a little bit rusty from what I've seen with her, Rousey and Flair in that tag team match and things like that. But I do think that overall, aside from the authoritative figure abusing their power and the fact that it seems completely racist that Sonya Deville only hates babyface minority females, other than those two things, I think it's at least a decent match for Backlash. How do you feel about what we're seeing here?
I want to start with your last point, which I think is a very interesting observation you made. That fact that Sonya Deville has only been picking on minority women. And it's a very interesting fact that's been happening. And I don't, to be honest, I really don't understand how WWE doesn't notice this either, considering that they'll go through the trouble of changing somebody's name if it has some very thin connection to a historical figure. Like, for instance, Walter being changed to Gunther. And it's like, well, why don't you also realize that you have one of your managers literally picking on minority women in your universe, in your WWE universe? Like, how can you accept that? How can you not notice it? And how can you accept it without any reasoning either? Naomi was picked on.
She said, you come around acting like you're a top act, but you're really just a background act or something like that.
Right. So First of all, I really don't even understand what she means about that, because she's literally a background act. She's literally in the backstage all the time. She's not even a wrestler at this point. She's had that one match you're talking about, and that's it. So I don't even know why she's saying that to Naomi, considering Naomi literally wrestles matches with top card women all the time. And she's had the championship belt before, or the championship title, excuse me. So I don't understand why Sonya has to say that. So really the only reason that Sonya Deville is picking on people, I guess, is out of jealousy. That's the only reason I can think of it. So it makes sense that she would be jealous of Bianca Belair, because Bianca Belair is the new champion now. So it would make sense that she would be jealous of her. But really, what is the reason of her picking on her? I just can't wait for the match to be over and for Belair to maintain her title, and for Sonya to move on to somebody else, because I think there's much better and bigger opponents that Belair could have.
Yeah, I think that this is a heat up Belair feud. It's a get more people to love her. Everybody hates Sonya Deville. We see Belair win. There's, who knows, man? 40% of the crowd could have wanted Becky to win. 65% of them could have wanted Becky to be champion. And as much as everybody loves Belair now, she's going to get a huge babyface pop every time. But there's still sectors of the fans who we need to solidify our new champion as a babyface that everybody loves, right? Everybody needs to get behind her. What better way to get behind her than have an authority figure abuse their power, take a cheap shot on her, and basically make it seem completely unfair? I think Belair is going to dominate this match. And I think that at the end of the day, if it's a way to get Sonya Deville back in the ring after the things she's been through, and it's a way to further cement Belair as the champion, I'm all for it. I don't like the way we've gotten there. It's like I always say, they have these ideas, but it's like they don't know how to connect the dots in a logical and respectful way to both the talent and to the audience. It's just like, here's A, here's B. B comes after A. Figure it out in the middle. It doesn't matter because B comes after A, you know? And sometimes we need a story on how we got from A to B.
Yeah, I mean, why isn't Dewdrop being that in between person? Why can't Sonya come out of hiding and have her first match with Dewdrop or somebody like that? Somebody that hasn't. I haven't. Where is Dewdrop, by the way?
She's re
Complete.
she's wrestling on main event dark matches, but that
Okay.
but okay, but that's a good point though. I don't see Sonya coming out to face Doudrop, but Alexa Bliss, who's about to come back as a babyface, is a perfect person, you know?
Yeah.
Non-title feud, and that's my thing with WWE, and why I get on the writers and why I get on the creativity is that they have the talent. They've just shown us a couple weeks ago that if they want to, they can put on a WrestleMania that's better than any other wrestling show out there, right? All around, it was probably better than anybody can put on any wrestling show. And that was one of the better WrestleManias I've seen in years. I didn't expect it to be that good, but they proved it to us, right? Why do we have to eat so much crap before we end up getting the filet mignon? And why do they have all these writers and not be able to write stories for all these different people and keep things going? It's like 1 minute we're going with Dewdrop, and then Dewdrop stops. Now we're going with Rhea Ripley and Bianca, but then that stops. Then we got somebody else. Then it stops. They never get multiple feuds going on. They use way too much airtime with recap packages that we see almost back to back at times, certainly more than once or twice a week, s definitely more than once a show for the bigger ones, and if they didn't use all that airtime for that crap, then they'd be able to use some of it to develop some more stories. And they do everything they can to save a little bit of time to say, "We're not gonna announce this tonight. Tune in to fucking Talking Smack or The Bump." And they spend an hour on there giving you more content and more promos and more decisions on what's gonna happen. And I just can't wrap my head around why they can't get all these people who look decent when they're out there more pushes and more storylines. because I think Doudrop would have been a perfect person to challenge Bianca right out the gate. We know Bianca's gonna win. Bianca's fucking beaten her 7 times, and that's probably why she's not very credible right now. But even if they used her to build Bianca up for Becky, Doudrop should still be somewhere, have a presence, and want that title. Otherwise, she's basically a loser that doesn't care. You know what I mean? That's how they're depicting her. I don't believe that about her. I
Mhm.
think Doudrop's outstanding. I thought her match with Becky Lynch at the Rumble was one of the best Becky Lynch matches out of, like, all those series of ones she had with Morgan and Doudrop and whoever the hell else she had to fight the last few months. I thought that Doudrop match was awesome, and it sucked for them that WrestleMania sign was on fire. But at the end of the day, they're going with this Sonya Deville and this Belair thing, fine, but why does it have to be at the expense of us seeing Asuka or Bayley again? Now, I think Asuka's not cleared to come back, but why can't we see Bayley again? Why can't we have Doudrop do something? Why can't we know for sure that Nikki AHH has been cut so I don't have to mention her name again? Stuff like that. You know what I mean, Kyle?
Instead, we got to see them as backups for the 24/7 segment, which is already a waste of time anyway. So I don't care if Nikki ASH is being slowly dragged very poorly and very slowly dragged over a countertop at a bar with drinks flying through the air. I don't care about any of that stuff. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. Who's excited about this dual wedding? Nobody. But that's where I'm seeing these characters now. These wrestlers have become background for segments I don't even care about, and it's just sad. And it's not on the same brand. SmackDown's a different brand, but I want to see Shotzi. I remember when I used to turn on any program for WWF back in the day, and it was guaranteed I'd see at least every single wrestler during that episode. Maybe not every single wrestler wrestles a match, but most of them did. And if I didn't see you wrestle a match, I at least saw you do a backstage promo. And we just don't even get that anymore. Instead, we get 4 recaps of the first thing that happened on Raw. Okay, here's the first 10 minutes of what happened on Raw. We're going to show it to you again at the 9-hour mark, and then we're going to show it to you again at the 9:45 mark, then we're going to show it to you again at the 10:30 mark. Well, why don't you just cut back all of those recaps that nobody cares about and give me an 8-minute match between wrestlers that I don't get to see on a regular basis? Remember when wrestlers used to just wrestle? Remember when they were just put in a ring and then they wrestled together? I mean, they had ridiculous tag team combinations of 2 people you never thought you would be put together going up against 2 people you never thought would be paired together. So, and that was fun because there was a lot of question mark in a match like that. You don't know what's going to happen, but I know exactly what's going to happen next week when Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre fight. Drew McIntyre is going to kick the crap out of Sami Zayn. And we know it because we've seen the same thing happen for the last 3 weeks. That's all I'm saying is like we have all these great wrestlers that could be utilized and they're not being utilized at all. But then we tie up Sonya Deville's return with a championship with a champion of Bianca Belair. I don't think so. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, man. We got returns, we got debuts, we got people on the roster that are in Ghostland right now. Now, Shotzi Blackheart evidently has had some back issues, and she hasn't. I don't know, for whatever reason they're not using her on TV, and it's been rumored that they're going to send her back down to NXT for a little bit, maybe to work with somebody down there. I don't know.
That's
So
a
maybe that
bummer.
so if that and you know what, man, with the name change shit, I gotta say this now because I'll fucking forget. What the hell? If you're gonna do all this name change shit, then why don't you just start out that way in NXT? Why do they have to establish
Right.
themselves in NXT as one thing and come the fuck out of there just to change their name? I understand what I've said a million times about it being like they're minor leagues and they want to do this and when they want to make it look different and they don't want you to be associated with their minor league character. They want you to associate it with whatever the hell they give them up here. But I just think that at the end of the day, like, it all just seems contrived and convoluted, and it doesn't make fucking sense with the name change and stuff. Um, but yeah, we got way too many people that are just in the dugout not being used, and TV time's being wasted on stuff that we all know, man. We don't need to see an earlier in the day. We didn't need to see it one time, but we saw it twice. That AJ Styles saw Priest walking by earlier in the day when he was being interviewed and decided to throw hands at him. And they showed us right after the commercial break. Then they had the match and they showed us Priest turning into a vampire to end the match. It's like all of that was almost a waste of time. I
I
mean,
mean, I would even argue about our previous conversation about Charlotte and Drew Gulak. Did we really need to see that? Do we really need to know that Charlotte is a bitch? Or did we not already know that?
I think
What was
the
the
only
point?
thing that accomplished for me is that it advanced that feud somewhat. It introduced a character, if Drew Gulak's gonna be that, and it kept Ronda Rousey off the damn TV for a week, which might be the best part.
That's true. I'd rather see Drew Gulak get submitted by Charlotte Flair than see Ronda Rousey do anything promo wise. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, man, I respect Charlotte a lot. I think she is I'm happy she's in the WWE. I think she's one of the best in the world. So, at the end of the day, there probably are some men that should act like they're submitting to her, you know? But I think that we get so much of her every week, and when you rub her against someone like Ronda Rousey, who is human melatonin, you're just it just doesn't work. But if you put Charlotte in there with somebody who can talk against them, you might have a hell of a promo. That's one of the things that, like, I can't wait for people that are actually worth a damn. Now, Charlotte might drop this belt to Ronda, and then we're gonna have to deal with Ronda for a while, but I just wanna see 2 people who can cut a promo against each other and captivate me without having to get physical, without having to figure 8 an announcer, and that's the thing that bothered me about this. I said this last night. This reminded me of when Stone Cold turned heel and nobody really got it, so and able to get everybody to get on board with hating him, booing him, he attacks Jim Ross and cuts him, makes him bleed, stomps him, mud hole in him in the ring. And then he did the same thing to Michael Cole a week later and dragged him all over the ringside area. And I was like, man, this just makes Stone Cold Steve Austin look like a prima donna. When up until this point, he was a badass ass kicker. You know what I'm saying? And so some of these things they do, I think, even though they're heels and they're supposed to be the way that they're portraying them, it makes them look like pussies attacking an announcer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, what did we really learn from this? We really didn't learn anything at all. We learned that Drew Gulak is a bitch, as well as Charlotte Flair, but they're different kinds of bitches.
Yeah, definitely, man. That's exactly what I got from it. So we're moving on here. We had Madcap Moss last night. I really was hoping after this split from Happy Corbin that we were gonna get a whole repackaging of Madcap, and maybe it's a slow burn with him, maybe it'll happen over time. He did ditch the hat, and he did say that Corbin bought him those suspenders, so maybe that's his excuse for still having them. Maybe he needs to buy new clothes or something like that, but he just seemed to have some momentum coming out of last week, and I felt like the way they presented him tonight, the way that he had to show his ass into the kiss cam, the way that he came out and kind of humped the Andre the Giant Battle Royal Memorial Trophy, the way that he even his mannerisms in his match just were all the same. He didn't really fight like a baby face, except for the one part where he kinda fought back and ran the ropes. Like, that was a good baby face sequence there. But I also didn't feel like the crowd was behind him nearly as much as they were when he was beating the shit out of Corbin. So I think that they need to be careful with this and make sure that they're putting him up against heels people really hate, or people are just gonna not really like him that much. How do you feel about how Madcap was last night? And really, did it come off to you as a successful advancement of his babyface character, or did it come off to you as something that seemed like a dead end? Because the other thing that's worth mentioning here is that Rick Boogs was getting ready to go for a singles run, and I wonder how much Madcap Moss gained as far as screen time due to the fact that Rick Boogs is now down for an extended period of time with his knee injury.
I do agree with you that Madcap Moss needs a visual change. He needs a different look. He needs to change the suspenders. He needs to change the shorts. He needs to do something. And I've heard some people suggest that he goes back to being more like his previous character, Riddick Moss. But my counter argument to that would be that that's not going to happen simply because WWE will not allow it. They changed his name to Madcap for a reason. And it's because they want to make sure that there is a separation of characters between their NXT characters and WWE characters. So I don't think he would ever go back to a Riddick Moss character, but I think it would actually be cool if he changed his first name as well. I feel like if you get rid of the Madcap and change it to something else, I don't even know what it could be, but a change of name would help, along with what you said, a change of look. And you're right, he's not doing the babyface mannerisms that he needs to be doing, and maybe he just needs to learn that from being with a baby face because he's been with a heel so long. Not that Corbin is a bad wrestler and couldn't teach him those kind of things, because Corbin is a fantastic wrestler and does a great job of playing either the baby face or the heel. But he's been with a heel forever, so he's got to learn how to change everything about him to a baby face attitude. Now, I think it did overall advance his babyface character simply because he got a win over a heel team in the Los Lotharios, and the fact that they were also doing heelish stuff like playing around with him, trying to distract him from the outside of the ring, and he still overcame that and he got the win anyway. I feel like that kind of advances a babyface no matter what. Simply just kind of a de facto thing, like, oh, you beat a heel team, cool. Babyface won, heels nothing. So in that sense, he wins because of that.
But I'll tell you what, in the ring, other than some of his mannerisms, like the stuff I figured Los Lotharios last night was doing a much better job at this than at illustrating that they were the heels and that Madcap's a babyface than Madcap did for himself.
Yeah.
Feel me? Angel pulling him down into the turnbuckle and just the way that Umberto was handling him, that was very heel. And so it did get a little bit of sympathy for him, but any sympathy I got for him was immediately discredited by the fact that he's showing his ass into the camera and making weird facial gestures and massaging a trophy.
He's Madcap, he's mad. He's crazy. That's why I was suggesting if he can just lose the Madcap and just become more of a normal, sane person, I feel like he would get over with the crowd more often.
Well, maybe that's down the pipeline for him. Like I said, we don't know what they're doing from week to week. We can say one thing they need to do next week, and then next week it fucking happens or happens in a better form.
Yeah, and the one thing I wanted to say too about that match is, Madcap Moss is using a finisher called the punchline, correct?
Correct.
It's a pretty cool finisher, but why can't it be a punch? I feel like if you're gonna have it called the punchline, why couldn't it be a finisher where it's like a Superman punch, where he's doing a punch line? I just thought it would be a more fun play on words to have your finisher be an actual punch if you're gonna call it the punchline. I like the move though. It's like a rollover throw, right?
Yeah, it's like a gut wrench, and then he kind of flips him over and then slams him. It's like a gut wrench suplex.
Yeah, so maybe it could be like the Gut Buster or something like that. Like some kind of comedy name that has to do with your gut.
They can also drop the comedy shit with him and make him a little more serious. But I think down the road here, what we're going to see, obviously, he's going to face Angel next week on SmackDown. He's going to run through that tag team. Maybe they even have him lose one. But in the next couple of weeks, I think something's going to materialize between him and Corbin, and we'll have a possible backlash match between him and Corbin. That's the only thing I can see with him, and maybe Corbin puts him over there.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And plus, why have them feud and then never talk to each other again after that? It's more fun to have them come back and have a match.
Yeah. So along with Madcap making his turn here, we got a lot of other changes. We got debuts. We got Raquel Rodriguez. We talked about her coming in as a babyface. Looks like she's set up to work with Natalia. We had Gunther, aka Walter, with Ludwig Kaiser. BLT on a Kaiser roll, no mayonnaise. Then we also had Tommaso Champa on Raw. We saw him for about 5 seconds. So what do you think about the debuts? Where do you think they're going with them? Do you like the way they brought him in?
Yeah, it's official. Tommaso Ciampa has made it official. That is not Elias, everybody. That is Elias's younger brother, Ezekiel. And if you don't believe me, just ask Tommaso Ciampa. He said it, not me.
Yeah, I love the way he was just so matter of fact. No, what are you talking about? That's Ezekiel.
That was great.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. He's one of the ones rumored to be joining the Edge faction. I don't mind what Edge is doing with his character. I don't mind the idea of Edge working with guys who are up and coming like that. I actually think that's great. I think factions are cool, especially when you get a heel faction and then a face faction. I don't like this spooky cartoon over the top vampire shit that they're doing on Raw. I mean, I can't deal with vampires being all over the Raw scene, and especially if they're going to end matches with the lights going out, blue lights being shined down, ridiculous faces being made by the guy in the ring, and then we just go to a commercial. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. Speaking of the lights, one of the things I wanted to mention to tie into people rumored to be joining this faction, Rhea Ripley, every time I've seen her in the past 2 weeks, they've been shining purple lights behind her. I don't know if you've noticed that.
No, I haven't.
If you look closely, they've been shining purple lights, and I wonder if that's some kind of foreshadowing or, I mean, for all we know, it's an accident, but Champa and Ripley are the 2 that we've heard that we're waiting for, and I think everybody thought it was just gonna happen in one night. I don't think that would ever happen because that's way too much to occur in one night,
Mhm.
but we got Ripley last night defeating Naomi in what I thought up to that point was the best work match of the night. A lot of people at the end of the night were saying, "Oh, that was the best match of the night." It couldn't have been the best match of the night. They were only on that TV for like 8 minutes, and there was, like, no false finishes. The last match of the night, the main event, that was the best match. It was hard to tell who was gonna win. The implications were huge. You had Orton on the outside beating up Jey Uso, an awesome pop-up RKO ending after a bunch of false finishes where it felt like it was over. Back to Rhea Ripley, she defeats Naomi last night. I liked how Ripley was fighting. She seemed a little more aggressive, almost like she was getting ready to turn heel or something. And I also like the way that they teased her hitting the riptide from like the top rope. Naomi and Ripley really put on a much better wrestling match than we saw with Morgan and Banks. And I said this already before. I think the common denominator in all these women's matches that sometimes seem sloppy is Liv Morgan sometimes is a little bit off in the ring. She's sometimes out of place. I think her offense is fine, but I think when she's trying to get in position for other people's moves, she's oftentimes out of place and you can see her kind of stutter stepping and it just comes off very sloppy for both performers. But and I'm not by any means throwing Liv Morgan under the bus. I like Liv Morgan as much as the next person, but she needs a little bit of work in the ring, and she's better in a tag team right now than making any kind of singles push because you can protect her in a tag team. So the question is, are we going to see Rhea turn? And if so, what do you do with Liv after that? I say I like the Rhea turn. I don't like her being a vampire, but I like her turning because it makes her heel and a viable opponent for Belair after she gets done with Sonya Deville.
All right. Well, I'll split this up into 2 responses. I'm going to talk a little bit about Liv Morgan, and then I'm going to talk about Rhea Ripley. I'll start with Rhea first. It would be amazing if Rhea could join that faction for sure. I think that she would be a good fit. I think that in order for that to happen, though, there needs to be some kind of connection between Edge and Rhea. I just don't see it organically happening. So I don't know how they're going to make that connection happen. But I think it would be great if she was part of this faction. Now, as far as those two splitting up, well, it seemed like they were kind of going in that direction for just that one match where Rhea and Liv lost and Rhea walked out on Liv. And that was just one small sign like, oh, maybe Rhea is thinking about splitting up this tag team, or maybe Rhea is over losing and being with people that make her lose all the time because she hasn't won anything in a long time, where she's going to want to join Edge's faction in order to become a winner again. So, like, that's the connection I saw. But they literally teased it once. And then after that, they quickly did a 180. They're like, oh, no, 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 no. We're best friends. No, 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 no. We're fine. And like Rhea gets them a rematch for the tag team titles, which makes no sense at all. They lost the freaking match. And then they're like, oh, yeah, well, okay, you get a title shot anyway. I know that match did not. I know that if they had won that match, that does not guarantee them a shot again at the titles. I understand that. What I'm saying is, if you face the champions and then you lose, you don't immediately get rewarded for another match against them for the titles. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I thought that was the perfect opportunity for them to start going in that direction. But that happened weeks ago. And ever since then, Rhea and Liv are best friends. And it's just weird to me that Liv seems like she's infatuated with Rhea. It's weird. It's just a really weird interaction between them, to where I don't understand how they could make them split up at this point. They're so in love with each other that there's no signs of them splitting outside of the fact that we want to see it happen. So I just feel like Rhea needs a little bit more emphasis to get out of that tag team with Liv outside of what they're doing right now. They're not playing into that story enough. But switching sides over to Liv Morgan, I agree with you that I feel like in a lot of cases, if you see a match and it seems to be sloppy or seems to be going slow or miscommunications are happening, it tends to be because of Liv Morgan. It feels like she's inexperienced. And to me, it looks like she is thinking too hard and she's feeling too much. She needs to just clear her mind and just do what she's there to do, because I feel like when she's trying to do those move sets, she gets ahead of herself and she gets in the wrong place or the wrong position, or she does the wrong move. You know, there's a lot of hesitation, like you said, and I feel like that's because she's thinking too much. Just stop thinking. So I know a lot of people like Liv Morgan, and I'm going to be controversial when I say this, but I'm not a huge fan of Liv Morgan. I'm just not. There's nothing about her character that has been appealing to me yet. And like, I came in to her character seeing her crying. Like, that's literally the first thing that I remember her character is her crying over everything. And lots of other wrestlers have made her cry during promos. And it's unbelievable to me to have a professional wrestler or sports entertainer or superstar, whatever you want to call them, crying over what somebody else is saying to them when you're just about to get in the ring and beat the crap out of them physically. Like, why are you crying when you're about to get in the ring and have a chance to actually beat them up? Those two characteristics do not match. And I'm just not attracted to Liv Morgan's character in any way. There's nothing that's appealing to me about her. She's not a great wrestler. She's not a good promo. She can barely get through half the words. I feel like she needs a lot of work. I do agree that she needs to stay in a tag team because she needs a lot of work, and it's doing her some help. So I'm glad actually that they've continued this tag team on for a little bit. But I feel like they haven't even shown enough proof of dissension between those two characters for us to believe that Rhea would go off the handle and join Edge's faction yet. There hasn't been enough. There hasn't been any build towards that, really, in my opinion, besides the purple light that you're talking about behind her.
All right. So, in your opinion, you don't see a turn by Rhea on Liv. Do you see them winning the tag titles on Monday? All right. So you think they'll lose that match? To me, the reason why the return is necessary, regardless of if they've and part of it is they're not gonna telegraph it, they want it to be surprising, so they telegraphed it and teased it a little bit, but they might not wanna put too much of it out there because then we're gonna be like, "Well, wait a minute, we saw this coming." They go through the thing where she walks out on her a couple weeks ago, then she doesn't follow her to SmackDown last week, which I don't think she could 'cause I'm pretty sure she was in protocol by then. Rhea needs to be a heel to be able to make a title run at the face champion, and she's somebody who's ready to do that. She's young. There's really being in these tag teams is doing nothing for Rhea Ripley except making her a loser. I don't think that in this tag team, being with Liv Morgan, energy they have, and it seems like Liv Morgan is like the little sister that just wants to be like Rhea, and Rhea's like kind of rolling her eyes. So that's another reason why they'll probably split because I think Rhea's eventually going to be like, I don't need you. You do nothing but bring me down. And as far as Liv Morgan goes, I try to support the fact that she's younger and she's getting better and improving. She's certainly way better now than she was when she started off with Becky, and I would give Becky a lot of credit for that. But she is not anywhere near the level of almost everybody else who's considered a top woman in that company. She's nowhere near Flair, nowhere near Becky, nowhere near Belair, nowhere near Banks, nowhere near Naomi, nowhere near Rhea Ripley. Nowhere even near Doudrop. She needs to be in a tag team. I don't know with who. If she gets turned on, I don't know what the hell she's gonna do. I agree with you. They will not win the tag titles on Monday. I think we will see a heel turn. Whether or not they decide to do it with Edge and stuff is on them. I'd like to see her just turn heel and not join Edge's faction because Edge's faction to me seems stupid. Just leave it with 2 guys, Damien Priest and Edge, and that's it. Don't turn it into a whole flock of vampires.
They have the two guys right now with Damian Priest and Edge, and it obviously a lot of people have made a comparison to the Brood, right, from back in the day. But remember when the Brood came about, it actually was more Gangrel bringing in Christian, right? So it was more just two of them for a while. Then we have Edge come in as Christian's brother, and then they move on from there as like a three-man group. But at first it was like two people for a while. So I can see Edge and Damien being a two-man group and try to build that faction, and then maybe it'll be easier to get people to join them after that. I'm intrigued to see what they can do with this faction. I think a lot of people are intrigued. I think that's the word, is intrigue, but they obviously haven't given us much information yet or given us much to go on. So we're all just taking guesses at this point. Who could be joining? Why did they have this group? What is the main reason that Priest says that he pledges allegiance to Edge? He didn't really say exactly the reason. He just said, I read your message, whatever that meant. I got it loud and clear, and now I'm going to devote myself to you. And Edge hasn't really explained much either. So that's another reason why I don't know yet how they can get Edge and Rhea connected, because they haven't really explained too much anyway. So I guess it'd be easy for them to be like, oh, here's Edge. He's just going to pop up and say, hey, Rhea, do you want to join us? I guess that's what they're going to do. But other than that, I have no idea how they're going to connect those two people.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think let's not connect them all. Let's just leave Priest and Edge together. Let's forget about the rumors and not act like we were first reporting it and hope that that never happens. Yeah, hopefully Rhea turns heel and gets a title run because she deserves it. Doesn't have to be on Liv. I really don't care. Tommaso Champa hopefully has a good career ahead of him. I think it'd be career suicide to start doing this blue light vampire shit now. But one of the things we'll talk about later, we'll address whether or not we're going to see him do that when we talk about Backlash. But let's move on from the Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan conversation. So we got women's tag titles and we got men's tag titles, and the men are trying to unify their titles here. Last night we got a little tease with Riddle against Jimmy Uso. I was really impressed by the match because Jay's definitely generally the better singles competitor than Jimmy, and they got a lot of time out of this match. They both got some really good near falls. It was very exciting. The place was rocking for it. The crowd was really into it, and I think this is, like, the top thing they got going. I wouldn't be surprised to see this headline Backlash, and I wouldn't be pissed off if it did, because Randy Orton himself is a big headlining character. Riddle, hopefully someday, is a big headlining character. RK Bro as a tag team is a headlining. So you put all that together and you have yourself a hell of a situation. They're both champions of their respective divisions. Do you think the tag unification is necessary? How do you think it's going to affect the other teams in the WWE? Do you think it'll be permanent, temporary?
Well, I think the question to the unification of the titles is gonna have to go in line with what they're doing with the current WWE Championship and the Universal Championship, where a lot of us assumed that they were going to come out with one belt after and combine the two belts into one and make one title. And that's not necessarily what they did. They still have the two separate belts that Roman Reigns holds up, but he uses the one title to describe himself being the whatever the name of the title is. Whatever they do with that is what they're going to do with the tag team titles as well. So if those two titles or those two belts for the main championships don't end up being meshed into one, I don't think they're going to do that with the tag team titles either. I do see the possibility of one tag team taking all both titles, though, both the Raw and SmackDown tag team championship titles, and it could be either way. I really do feel like it could be the Usos or it could be RK Bro, because I think you have good reasons to do both. I think it's extremely intriguing to a lot of people for the possibility of the Usos to get these titles and for the Bloodline to be able to have their moment where they're holding up what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 belts all together between the three of them. It'd be a great, photographic moment. It would be really great for the Bloodline to cement their epic history as well in professional wrestling. So I can see that happening. You know what? I can see RK Bro winning as well. I can see Riddle and Randy taking those titles off the Usos, and that might actually help get Roman Reigns back involved with this tag team storyline, because we haven't really had much of him since he just challenged the Usos to go get them in the first place. So we don't even know if he even is involved, which I'm sure he is because he's involved with everything. But at this point, storyline wise, we haven't heard much from him. So I'm going to assume that the Usos are kind of on their own at this moment. But I tell you what, if RK Bro can take those titles off the Usos, then that's going to give Roman Reigns a reason to come back in and say, hey, I'm not going to accept my cousins losing their titles and giving you the chance to hold those. I want to win those back. And then maybe there's another tag team championship in the unification championship in the future, or there might even be a 3-man tag team between Roman and the Usos and Riddle and Randy and a third person, maybe Shinsuke at this point. Because I also think you were saying that it's possible that this tag team title match is the headlining match. I think there's a good chance, because one of the reasons being, I don't think Roman Reigns is going to have a match at Backlash. I think if Roman Reigns is in a match at Backlash, then he's going to get the main spotlight. I mean, I think that's obvious. But if he's not in a match, in an actual match, I think this tag team championship will take the main spotlight, and deservedly so, because both these teams are extremely over in their own rights. They're fantastic tag teams. I can't wait for the match. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. I think you're going to see Riddle hit 2 RKOs in the air. I don't think it's going to be one, but I think he's going to hit 2 of them on both the Usos. I'm calling it now. Jimmy and Jay, you're both getting an RKO midair. Calling it. But what I really want to happen in the long run with this whole feud is I really want to get a reason for Roman Reigns and Randy Orton to have a match. I don't even care if it's for any titles or anything. I just want to see those two have one last opportunity to go to head, especially at a pay-per-view. Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities, but my main assumptions right now would be that the Usos are going to get all the tag team titles, and they're going to be able to have their moment holding those up with Roman Reigns. so the bloodline can get their moment as being the most dominant bloodline ever in wrestling history.
I don't think there's anybody that doesn't think it's going to be a great match. Some idiot actually thought that the match was supposed to be on Raw, and they were getting all excited for it. But not only that, Reigns Nakamura, I don't think they can sell that as their main event. And the other thing about the main event is that there's a possibility that Rousey and Flair are lobbying to have that spot, given the fact that they didn't get a main event spot at Mania, but who the hell knows? But regardless, I'm with you on I'd like to see a reason for Orton or Riddle to challenge Reigns. I don't care if it's not believable at this point for Riddle to challenge Reigns. I want to see it happen because I think that would be a good match. I know Reigns is going to win. Riddle should not take any of those titles, which, by the way, Roman Reigns is the unified, undisputed WWE Universal Champion. The other thing is that I think that the Nakamura thing, who the hell knows if that's anything? All we've seen is him come out and the Usos super kick him. We saw nothing this week. We have no idea if Roman Reigns is hurt. We have no idea if he's in a program for this. We just know that we have a tag unification match sort of hanging over everything, and it seems to be the hottest thing out there. It's definitely what they're pushing as their biggest thing. The other Backlash matches that are confirmed at this point are Rousey, Flair, I Quit match, Belair and Deville, and Seth and Cody. I think it's worth considering that we're going to get McIntyre and Zayn, possibly Reigns and Nakamura, possibly Moss and Corbin, maybe a women's tag title match. And then it's been rumored that Styles and Champa are going to team up against Edge and Priest, which is maybe where we see Champa turn on Edge. But what do you think about those possible Backlash matches and anything else you want to add?
Well, I've got a feeling that Roman Reigns' injury is still up in the air right now. And I do feel like he's injured. I feel like they're just trying to hide it. And I don't think he's going to be ready for a match at Backlash. So I don't think he's going to have a match, even though a lot of people think just because of that super kick that there's going to be a Roman Reigns versus Shinsuke Nakamura match. I don't think that's going to happen. I certainly don't think that they would give him a unified WWE Universal Championship title match at Backlash. I don't understand why Shinsuke would deserve that for any reason outside of him just being a previous Intercontinental Champion, as recently. So I don't think that match is going to happen. The other rumored match that's highly unlikely, in my opinion, is AJ Styles and Tommaso Ciampa versus Edge and Damien Priest. The only reason I think that that's not possible is I don't think they have brought Tommaso in enough storyline wise to get him involved with this. We do have some time before Backlash, but I feel like we first need to establish him on the main roster as a valid character before we can start throwing him into a crazy storyline like the one that Edge and Damien Priest and AJ Styles are involved. They're giving Ricochet a lot of action right now. He's getting a lot of matches on a regular basis. He's actually going over quite often too. I do feel like they're going to give him a title defense opportunity. I don't know who it's going to be against, but I feel like he's perfect for Backlash. He's got a lot to offer as far as a premium live event goes. He's a showstopper. He's a high flyer. He puts on an excellent show, and I feel like he was snubbed out of being part of WrestleMania. So I feel like they at least owe him as part of being on Backlash. It's
Yeah,
possible.
I mean, I
Who
don't want to
knows?
get into that rabbit hole right now, but the big question is, without Reigns having a match for his title, do you think that having Seth and Cody, Belair and Deville, Tag Unification, and Rousey and Flair, I Quit, do those four matches to you carry this pay-per-view, which isn't supposed to be that much of a pay-per-view to begin with?
Yeah, I think it's in the title. It's called Backlash. We're supposed to see some repeats. We're supposed to see some feuds continue on from WrestleMania. So yeah, it's pretty much the kind of card that I would expect for a WrestleMania Backlash show. And I'm not disappointed. I mean, I really don't care to see Ronda Rousey, but if she's gonna be on my screen wrestling anybody, then I'm okay with this I Quit match. It adds a little bit more of a unique approach to the feud between them. So I'm cool with that, I like seeing Seth, Cody match up. I think they match up fantastically. I think they actually have in-ring chemistry that sparked out of nowhere during the WrestleMania match. So I'm excited to see a rematch between those two guys. I think it's going to be another barn burner. And this time with some more prep, almost like what Seth was saying, where he has time to prepare for Cody. But the two of them can prep together and make some really cool spots in this match. I feel like that they might even be a show stealer right there. Those two might take the whole Backlash show and steal it from everybody else. So yeah, I'm fine with those matches. That makes sense. The other couple matches they're gonna have to fill in, I'm probably just gonna feel like they're fill-ins. There's really not a lot that they could add in here that makes me go, "Ooh, I can't wait to see that." But, like Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre, they're probably going to have another match, and it'll be their fourth or fifth match in a row. So I don't really care too much about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are gonna have to run back some of these things like Lashley and Omos based on what we've seen because we got the MVP involvement now. And I think that the matches on there are fine. I don't want the tag unification match to be overshadowed. I think I quit matches are fun. I want to see Belair squash somebody. And I think Seth and Cody stole the show at WrestleMania and we'll do it again. I don't have a problem with anything they're doing. And sometimes you need to sit down your top guy for a little bit to allow the people underneath of him to do something worth a damn. Otherwise, like I said, if they're not developing into a character who's part of a story that matters, then why should I care about the fake fight that they have at the pay-per-view or on Monday or Friday night? I shouldn't care. I don't care about these two men who want to go fake wrestle each other unless there's some story to invest in. So that's one of the reasons why you can't just have Roman Reigns tie up 45 minutes every SmackDown episode and every Raw episode and then tie up a whole main event because not only does he tie up that part, he also ties up all the video package times and all the build that you had to do. Just think about him and Lesnar, how much crap they had to do for that feud alone. I understand it was WrestleMania and it's Lesnar and Roman Reigns, but at the same time, they had to do so much shit and replay it and remind every viewer who might have missed it and the ones who didn't miss it 37 times about every event that happened. My point is that sometimes your top guy, especially when he's as strong as Roman Reigns and has the track record that he's developed, it's okay to sit him down if you need to bring up the rest of the roster, which is something that all fans, WWE or not, criticize WWE for. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make their tag division seem more important. The tag unification thing makes the belt seem more important to me. It also takes care of the problem that RK Bros smashed everybody in the Raw tag team picture, and the Usos have taken care of everybody in the SmackDown tag team picture. So until they develop more tag teams, there's no reason to have two sets of championships. That's a big match. I'm okay with the Backlash card. The possibilities of Zayn and McIntyre, that's fine. I like watching them both work. I don't see Reigns and Nakamura being something. The tag team match between Styles, Champa, Edge, and Priest, I don't see that happening. And maybe we'll see a US title and an IC title match just because I like to see those belts featured. But other than that, that's all I got to say about Backlash. That's pretty much all we got for the week. Please subscribe. We're available on all podcast platforms. You can email questions to matt@beyondthemat.com. And that's all we got for you tonight. We're out.
Good night, guys.